California Congressman Ted Lieu is a Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee. He's joining us now. Sir, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Brianna.
Joining us from Leesburg, Virginia, where the conference for the House Democrats is, I should say. So former FBI Director James Comey was asked a short time ago about the AG's spying comments. And Comey said he had no idea what Barr was talking about. I wonder first, what did you think of Barr using this word spying to describe surveillance of the Trump campaign Russian contacts that, in his word, could have been properly predicated?
Thank you for your question. With every passing day, Bill Barr looks less like an independent thinker and more like a pawn of the president. We know that it's been nearly 3 weeks since Robert Mueller completed his report. Bill Barr still hasn't released it. We know that Bill Barr believes it is the mission of the Department of Justice to defend congressional laws, yet he's doing the bidding of by suing to overturn the law that protects pre-existing conditions coverage. And now he's engaging in conspiracy theories by saying that somehow the FBI spied on the Trump campaign. That's not what happened at all. These were surveillance warrants approved by the Deputy Attorney General, who happens to be Republican, authorized by 4 judges, FISA judges, who also happen to be Republicans. This was authorized surveillance.
Barr said he didn't know if this spying was adequately predicated or justified. Barr's loaded language aside, is this an important question to answer? Because there was no collusion that was found in this when you look at Barr's summary of the Mueller report.
So we know that Robert Mueller believed that there was not evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that the president engaged in a conspiracy with the Russians. That doesn't mean that members of his campaign didn't engage in activities that were collusive, or the president may have engaged in collusive type activities that did not rise to the level of federal crime.
In fairness, quote, this is Robert Mueller's words, quote, "The investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities." That's in the summary, but that's actually a quote from Robert Mueller.
Yeah. That is correct. I do not challenge that. What I'm saying is they can engage in activities that don't rise to a level of beyond a reasonable doubt of engaging in a federal crime. We need to see the entire report to know. Now, in terms of what we're talking about with the alleged surveillance of Trump campaign officials, again, these were approved by 4 FISA judges appointed, and they're Republicans, and it was approved by a Deputy Attorney General who also happens to be a Republican.
So when it says it did not establish that they conspired or coordinated, it doesn't say reasonable doubt. You're extrapolating that from this quote?
Absolutely. I'm a former prosecutor. The charge of Robert Mueller, who's also a former prosecutor, is before he indicts anyone, he has to have evidence he believes can establish beyond a reasonable doubt that a person committed a crime.
Okay, and we haven't seen the report. That's very important to note. You have almost 400 pages, and we haven't seen that. Congress hasn't seen that. I want to talk about WikiLeaks. Julian Assange, as you know, is under arrest in London. The U.S. Department of Justice has announced he's charged with conspiracy to commit computer intrusion, and this stems from the Chelsea Manning case, not the release of DNC and Clinton campaign emails. What's your reaction to this?
So as a former prosecutor, I believe no one is above the law. I am a strong supporter of the First Amendment and of press freedoms, but what Julian Assange did was a step different. He is wanted in multiple countries for multiple crimes. He originally went to Ecuador embassy to seek asylum because Swedish prosecutors charged him with rape. He has now come to the United States because U.S. Department of Justice officials have charged him with conspiracy to commit computer intrusion. Regardless of what you think of their First Amendment, it does not authorize anyone to engage in computer hacking of a classified computer system.
You're talking to us, as I mentioned, from the summit. You're there in Leesburg, Virginia, and I want to ask you about some comments that were made there by House Budget Chairman John Yarmuth. He's describing the Democratic caucus, and here's what he said, quote, "2/3 of our caucus hasn't been in the majority. They're used to rhetorical exercises and not actually doing the governing work. Then you've got 70% of our new members who've never been in public office." Do you think that's an accurate description of why there are many, let's say, competing and sometimes out of sync voices that are coming from your party?
We have over 235 amazing members of the Democratic caucus. We represent different districts, and we're going to have different priorities. But at the end of the day, as we work through different issues, we always come together, and we've had a stunning success in the first 100 days, passing off universal background checks on guns, passing off the Violence Against Women Act, as well as engaging in hearings on reducing health care costs. So it's going to take some time, but at the end of the day, we're passing off votes on a majority basis to move America forward.
Do you think that some of the folks in your caucus aren't bringing some institutional knowledge to the situation as they engage in some of these debates, and also just the awareness of how you govern and what it takes to have maybe a fight with someone versus what it takes to actually get something done?
So the way our entire government is set up, it's not set up to be efficient. It's set up to have a lot of voices to be heard, to have a lot of discussions. And at the end of the day, we're going to move forward. And in our Democratic caucus, our strength is our unity. And as you saw in the government shutdown, we were unified. As you've seen in their major votes coming off the House floor, they've been very unified votes. So at the end of the day, we are passing legislation for the people that's moving the American family forward.
I like how you put that, though, that the government isn't set up to be efficient, because truer words were never spoken. Congressman Ted Lieu, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Brianna.